Hello, everyone. Welcome to one more podcast of the Athletic School. Today, our guest speaker is Gary Scheffler. Coach G is the director of training at the GOATA Movement. Gary, thanks so much for joining me.
Appreciate it, man. Thank
Well,
you.
thanks for taking the time to do this. I've been wanting to get someone to talk about this in the podcast for a long time now. So, what's the GOATA Movement?
GOAT is an acronym. It stands for Greatest of All Time Action.
Hmm.
Everybody knew what GOAT was
Yeah.
when we started kicking around, what we was going to call the company in 2017. That's kind of what we came up with, and we just rolled with it. You kind of only get one shot to get those things right. I don't know if we got it right or not, but the word's used a lot now.
Yeah.
But um, it basically the way that it all came about, Jose Bosch, Coach Gilly, he was a good friend of mine, knew each other. I played ball with his brother and stuff. And I opened GLS in 2014. 2015, he came to me with the concept of inside ankle bone high, back chain dominant. He kind of had like these ideas of what, movement should be. And he started like looking at one thing. He had 3 levels of his back was blown. Like he would sneeze and have a back episode. So he was trying to figure it out for himself. Not necessarily as a trainer, just the relationship that we had. He kind of brought it to me. And when I opened the gym, and I was like, corrective exercise, man. It's all the same stuff. Just go. I gave him a little space in the front. And I had a kid named Jamal Chase that was training with me. He happens be maybe arguably the best receiver in the league. But he started with me in the 8th grade. We knew who he was at the time. Like he was a freak athlete and all. And he said that Jamal was inside ankle bone low and he would get hurt. And I was like, Jamal's a freak athlete. It's never going to happen. And sure enough, he came down with a ball in the back of the end zone. Nobody around him, ruptures his patella in high school or whatever. And that's where GOATA really got birthed, because I went pick up the iPad and I started studying movement based off of some of the things that me and Gilly was already talking about. And then 2019, Ricky Stanzi came in, and we bought Gilly out. Gilly's a businessman. He kind of it's not really his thing. He's enjoying life. He's got a few other companies that do really well, and he kind of left it in our hands at that point. But he basically GOATA is just an observation. So we went back and looked at, naturally you got to look at the baby, because the baby's our first locomotive pattern. God gives it to us, from a spiritual standpoint. If whoever you pray to is our creator, right? We believe in God. In that pattern is innate. Nobody teaches the baby. The baby squats with nobody teaching it. The baby runs with nobody teaching. Like it just learns all these things naturally, right? So take that a step further, and you look at the indigenous tribesman who has no education, from what we would say in the Western civilization. He has no cause, he has no chaz. So that natural pattern has the ability to stay with him, right? So we look at them. Then we took it to an elderly community. If we see it in the old, we see it. I mean, we see it in the baby. We see it in the indigenous. The next thing would be is we got to see it in the adults that could still do. So when we looked at the Penn relays in the 90-year-old division, and you see Ida Keeling and Hurricane Hawkins and these athletes that still can compete, or even just be out there running. I mean, Ida Keeling was 104 years old and ran 100 meters. It wasn't the fastest, but she was the only one in the division. So, and rest in peace. She's a big part of this program too, because we studied her. But then we took it to the super athlete. Can we find this in the athletes? Can we find it in a person that could play for 20 years like Ed Reed and not get hurt? And that pattern was existent in all of these different, entities. So we built a system around that. It started with corrective exercise. The recoding process was begun. We built an evaluation. You come in, you get evaled. We tell you why you having the issues that we have. And the people that stick to the program, we have a very, very, very high success rate. Typically where we miss is when someone comes in and they may have been misdiagnosed, they have, they got this and it's really just something else, and then they go get an MRI done and they got a torn labrum in their hip or something like that, which in some cases we could help them live a comfortable life. I have a few clients that's 50 to 70-year-old range that's back walking and playing basketball and stuff like that was scheduled for surgery, that found us at the last minute and chose not to do it. So that's where GOATA kind of came from. When Ricky came in 2019, it gave me the ability to kind of really hone in on the training and kind of product test what we were doing. And that's, I would say, 2020, 2021, we had it dialed in all the way. And now what you see is we built that funnel where if somebody's unsure of GOATA, or they don't like it or whatever it is, they could go in our level 1 certification. It's essentially free. You put a $100 deposit up, you get that $100 back if you choose not to go forward, but it allows us to explain to you what GOATA is and not try to figure out off of Instagram or something like that.
Yeah, that's awesome. And a lot of the audience, the people that are listening to us, they are student athletes, right? And I think they are always thinking about performance and how to get better, and that's how I found you guys. What's the difference between the GOATA movement and, just traditional training? When you go to the gym, you simply just lifting weights.
So typically the traditional training is built around isolation. In a lot of cases, you'll have a glute exercise, a quad exercise, shoulders, biceps, triceps. GOATA is a more systematic approach. We took that movement pattern, and all you see in that movement pattern is fractals of it. And it's not, like a lot of just about every single triple extension exercise, just to kind of give you an example, when the foot comes off the ground, the foot opens or the hip opens. So you see the knee point out like that. In GOATA, when we go into extension, the hip closes, because that's what we saw in Ed Reed and Michael Jordan.
Mm-hmm.
There was a very consistent pattern of that. Ida Keeling, the baby, when we see the babies, they sit in Caesar. So, going back to the whole observation-based thing, the traditional weight training and all, when you look at it versus, how we actually move, most of it's anti-rotational and it's all isolation. So it doesn't fit. It kind of breaks down the harmony of the body is what Jameis Winston's got a trainer that's with him all the time. And Jameis been working with us for 2 years now. And he was like, when he started really understanding, because he's in the certification, he was like, okay, it's breaking the harmony of the body down when we isolate those muscles. And that's exactly what it is.
And do you think that's when the injuries happen, because we are working all those muscles in isolation?
Yeah, well, I mean, think about it like this. When we sit there and we say, okay, training causes, think of it like a car. Remove the human element for a second. Treat the body like a machine. If you take a car and this is going to sound stupid, but you take the right tire and turn it out a little bit, everybody in the world knows that car is going to fall apart. The human body's the same thing. And that's what we was able to identify with GOATA is this is how you're supposed to move through space. Anything outside of that in training, you're taking the chance of taking that away from you. So now we have it where it falls in line with the training. We could do an eval. 2 months later, we do another eval, and the athlete's moving completely different. So we can change it through repetition. And, that's kind of where we at.
Yeah. And, for the people that are listening to us, what are some of the things that they can do? Like, they're going to the gym today, and they never heard of GOATA. I assume they can go to your Instagram and take a look at the exercises there. But what are some things that they should avoid at all costs, and what are some of the things that they should be doing? Like, should they be running? Should they stop doing squats? Is there anything like that?
We actually squat. Like we took it away for a little while, and the more that we kind of studied the movement and the way that we pressurize the foot, like a lot of these kids, I brought the squat back mainly because I wanted to give my kids the best option for it, because they're being forced into doing all of these things in the weight room. And when they go in there and they back squat, we want the feet straight. The reason why you want the foot straight is because the talus has to be able to move. If you duck the foot out, now the talus only hinges. Whereas if in the talus, the tib and fib connect to it, it plugs into the top of the foot for people that don't know. And then it basically sits in there and behaves like a ball and socket. So you should be able to see the shin open and close in movement. And we show that a lot on our pages or whatever. So when you take and turn the feet out, it takes away everything that you do in repetition, you become, right? Like if you go and even in life, those things, it's like that. But there's a behavior that we like to use the word behavior because, everything's behavior. If you move bad, if you train bad and your training doesn't match with the movement, then you're going to train your way out of your movement pattern. And then you could get a little stronger. You could get faster. We do see performance, right? But you take anybody and you throw them into a training situation, no matter what they're doing, they're going to get better.
Right.
So,
and do you think longevity and peak performance, what's the relationship between longevity and peak performance? Do you think people can, have a high performance, perform in a high level for a long period of time?
Well, we've seen it. And that's the thing with GOATA too, is like, we're not going to tell you our opinion of things. We're going to tell you what we saw. Because like I said, it was all observation-based theory. So, when we look at a Michael Jordan versus Gale Sayers, or Barry Sanders versus Gale Sayers, to stay in the same two different movement patterns. One was hurt all the time, could have been the greatest running back of all times. But then you go look at Barry Sanders and he moves completely different. So that's where, we look at it and we say, okay, are we going to take away that? Because we identified it in Randy Moss too, and who could play 20 years and I think tweaked the hamstring in camp one year, and his might have went in a little overweight, and I know these things because I trained his son. But it's the longevity side of it is where the money's at for the pro athlete, even for the kid that just wants to play in college or whatever. If he's hurt, he's on the bench. No scholarship. Most people can't afford college these days. It's probably 15% of the country that can pay to go to college. And you get these kids that's their shot to get to college, and then they getting hurt because they got the 7th grade science teacher from the middle school coaching senior weightlifting class. And that's what happens. They just got this job opened up for $1,200 a season, and the guy needs some money, so he goes and takes it, and there's no qualifications. I see shit in high schools around here that's disgusting. And a lot of it's politics, who not who does the best job.
Yeah. Do you think genetics play a role into all of that, or is something that
absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. From a genetic coding, LeBron is one of the biggest genetic freaks that we've ever seen, right? I think it protects him a little bit. I think there's a level of protection that could come with it. Now he's very careful, right? He's playing every other game. He's, for the last few years, listen, I know I go work with JT Thor with the Hornets, and when they play LeBron, he ain't on the court because the Hornets win 15 games a year. He's not playing in those games. He's spending $1.5 million a year on recovery. He's talked about those things. He's very duck-footed. He's got the soft tissue injury just about every year that he deals with. If you go back and look at his injury list, it's a calf, it's a groin. So when that tissue is not performing properly, your nervous system wants to shut the body down. And that's what you see with him. When he feels it, he shuts it down. But to say yes, I would say, yeah, your genetic coding has something to do with it for sure.
But do you think for the regular people, for the average person, can we train to become closer to LeBron in a way? Can we at least, I don't know, get a good
you can't train genetic, you can't become right. You can't raise your genetics, I guess, so to speak, if that's what you're asking.
Well, but my thing is like what the average person can do since they don't have genetics.
I mean, you're not going to get away with it. That's why we see a spike in injury history. And then the other thing that you got to take is LeBron's got, I'm in my kitchen right now, right? Like if you go in LeBron's kitchen, they got a chef. He's probably got a massage therapist in the other room. He might have a doctor in there if he wants. He's going to have the resources to protect himself too. Where the person that's watching this show ain't going to have a chef. They're not going to have. Some of them might not even have private training. You know what I'm saying? So to say, can we do what he does and get away with it, would be insane to say that because of the resources that now. The one of the bigger things that I would say that kind of puts a lot of this stuff together is that there is no blueprint, right? Like we kind of and you may touch on that a little bit later, like why we do things the way we do, but those guys don't have so that if there's no blueprint, there's no evaluation. So a kid walks into the high school weight room and he's gonna clean and squat and all of this. They just got 125 kids on the football team and they walk in there and there's something written on the board, we maxing out. And then they max out, they get these numbers and they break down percentages and then that's it. Nobody sits there and goes, was this kid's foot and ankle ready to put 300 pounds on his back? Is his back ready for 300 pounds on his back? And then you'll get kids in the weight room that's got peer pressure on them. And next thing you know, that they got, they might get 150 up and they like, come on, man, put another plate on. And then, they go up, they put fives on each side. They can't handle 160. And then boom, the kid throws his back out or something like that. Now that kid misses. And then the strength coach is going to sit there and just defend it. Like, well, the kid did this, or he was playing with his friends. Or there's never any accountability, and that's why the strength and conditioning world hasn't grown in the last 100 years.
Yeah, you talk a lot about the posture, like of our feet when we're doing something, and I've seen you guys talk a little bit about posture in general. What's the importance of having a good posture, like from your back to your feet?
Yeah, your posture is your alignment, right? It is your car. Like I brought the car analogy up earlier. You go bring your car in every 6 months, and you have them redo your front end, rotate your tires and stuff like that because it starts to get out of whack, out of time from just driving it or whatever. The human body has an alignment also. You go in and you see a kid that's like this. That's a baseball player. He's got elbow pains. Well, we know that if we could get his posture back up because we've done it, the pain goes away. So we know that there's an ideal alignment because when we put people in it, they perform at a higher level. And they also, if you notice ABX, Albert Brock, I don't know if you're familiar with ABX Speed School. So we've partnered up with them from just a local New Orleans area kids, and he's taken and basically modified his speed program using GOATA principles at the foot and ankle level, along with back chain, front chain, and naturally everybody wants you to be flexible, right? I don't think any trainer says flexibility don't matter, but and he's incorporated all of that stuff. So now his turnovers are better. The athletes that I had that wasn't getting some of that stuff, some of the quick twitch type training and stuff, they're getting that now. We've got kids running 4.3 before their junior year of high school. So, and it's only going to get better because, the more that we produce, the more kids in the area that are starting to come to us and stepping away from the other training. And we're also producing a faster, stronger, heavier athlete. Safer athlete.
100%. Love that. Tell me a little bit about 3D mapping that we were talking a little bit before.
Yeah. The 3D mapping thing is basically, from what my understanding of it is that there's a almost like it's something that studies. It's almost like it studies these movement patterns and it comes up with an ideal movement, I guess you could say, or it's like almost like an algorithm being built or something. But it's like, where's that information coming from? Is it coming from there's no blueprint, like I said earlier, right? Like there's no like design, like how does the body supposed to move? That's what we went after with GOATA is okay, we doing all this lifting, we doing all of this training, but is the body even in the proper position to have it? So you go back and you relate to your posture and stuff like that. When we look at movement, we took people that were safe and we built our blueprint off of that. And then when the athlete comes in, that athlete gets an eval, and whatever we see, okay, well, your shoulders are jacked up, you're a baseball player, you could potentially have elbow pain or shoulder pain. And then the kid goes, oh, yeah, I had Tommy John when I was 15. And it's like, okay, well, this is why. We clean up his posture, his velo goes up because the subconscious side of it goes away. Like, I'm not going to throw my arm out again. He's doing something to fix that. Whereas like physical therapy or that side of it is it's cookbook recipe, right? Like you walk in there, oh, you have elbow pain. This is what you do. We look at it like you have elbow pain. Let me see what your body looks like and see what you need. Not this is what you do for an elbow. That's the difference between GOATA and then the evaluation process is so important because it gives the athlete the ability to see GOATA. Like, what is it I should be doing? And then once they take and they look for themselves, they kind of like have the ability to look and we tell them their coach is telling them, yeah, you back chain dominant. Then they come in there with us and their ankle is sitting like their hip socket's sitting in front of the ankle. And we sitting there going, that's front chain dominant. That's not back chain. I don't care if you got big hamstrings and big glutes. You're not back chain dominant. Back chain dominant is a movement behavior. It's not just a postural thing, but the movement behavior creates the posture. So that's how we know.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So yeah, I mean, for me, one of the biggest things, like, there's no education when it comes to that, right? And I'm glad you guys are doing this movement and teaching people about it, because for student athletes like me, like you said, we go to the gym and then let's lift this much, and that's all you're gonna do. Then you go to the field, and then you get injured, and it just becomes a cycle, right? You never get out of the cycle. You never get better, and then you don't know why you are not performing. So what's one thing that you would share with the world in terms of the GOATA movement? What's something that everyone should know? Let's say you're gonna have a billboard for Coach Gary. What's gonna say?
From a GOATA perspective,
Yeah.
No matter who you are, it's for you. Because I always make the joke, the little old lady, she shrinks, right? We know that's not good posture. Her back starts to get a hump on it. She's walking with a cane. But the guy that's 90 years old that could still go walk 18 holes of golf, and we ran into that guy, actually 97, he's straight up and down. We met a guy one time, 97 years old, served in World War II. And he's out there walking 18 holes of golf 3 times a week at 97. And he's got a group of older men that he plays with. And when this man, I got a picture of him, he's standing, he got straight feet, his shoulders are in alignment, his feet are under his hips. So my thing is GOATA's for the world. It's really for the world. And we've got clients starting at 8 years old that go in there and they tell them they got Shiver's disease or Osgood-Schlatter or something like that. And we get them out of that stuff in 2 to 3 days. And then, they typically become our client for life, or at least GOATA becomes the foundation of everything that they do.
Mm-hmm. What do you see GOATA going in the next 5 years or something like that?
I mean, I'd like to believe that it's going to start to become the foundation for everything. It is human movement. We have a couple of medical entities that's talking to us right now about doing a medical research for their own, we know it works. I mean, you take somebody that's been in my gym for a year or two and you go look at, them perform and then ask them if they've ever been hurt. I mean, just listen to the testimonials from the NFL players and stuff like that. But yeah, I think it's a big it's a big industry that you're trying to knock the wall down, and it's very protective over what's been there. It's why it hasn't changed much. And when I say it hasn't changed much, the actual training hasn't. It's actually the training that we have seen, like a lot of this field work stuff and things like that. It's kind of gotten further and further away from. It's not getting better. It's not making things better. Nobody's doing, they training positions of injury now because they think they could strengthen those positions by making the athlete familiar with it. When in turn, all you're doing is like, you're putting a drug in front of a drug addict. It only makes it worse. It's not like they're going to be able to hold off, and the body's like that. You can't train it in these awkward positions to make it stronger. It has an alignment, it has a pattern, and anything outside that pattern, it's at risk.
Why do you think that industry is so big? Like, why is it like, I don't know, maybe it has to deal with history or something, but why there's people that go to the gym and they're only lifting weights?
It's
And
all
why?
they know.
I'm sorry?
It's all they know.
Mm-hmm.
That's why the level 1 certification was so important, was to give people the truth, to let them see, we haven't had anybody go through that level 1 that was like, this is bullshit.
Mm-hmm.
We've actually had a few guys that's been, they go back and forth with us on social media that listen, and if I sit there and argue with you on Instagram, we go eat lunch. Like I'm not, this ain't personal. This is trying to get a message out there at all costs. I really don't care what people think about me in a sense. So it's like, we're trying to help everybody. When we get those people that have fought us and gone round and round with us, and we invite them into the level 1, they don't show up. One of them actually asked us to go on his podcast, but he wanted our level 1 information first. He went through all of the level 1 information and never did the show with us because he saw the truth.
Right.
He knows that it's very well founded. We did our homework. I got 30-something thousand entries in my iPad, a slow motion video. I've done 1,000 evals. Like, I've been there since the beginning. We created the evaluation process, and we created the exercises, and that's why Ricky was so important, because it gave us the chance to get in there and work on the performance side of it. Mm-hmm. So,
do you think the aesthetics, and because everyone wants bigger muscles and all of that, do you think that plays a bigger part of it?
Well, typically for the uneducated, it does, because you get that with GOATA too. Mm-hmm. I mean, we do a wall sit for 12 minutes with a 45-pound plate, and you're holding it. You can't rest it on your lap, on your back, or anything like that. You're holding it in your arms. You're going to get a lower body burn, and you're going to get an upper body burn, and you're going to get grip strength, and you're going to get everything in one exercise. And we do a bunch of stuff. But I'm saying, when we work the human body, we work the whole body. Muscle development is basically time under tension. It's the amount of time that you're spending in that squat. So when you see somebody do the squat, you do 5 squats, you don't get stronger, right? But you go do 5,000 squats, and you'll see that kid's done 5,000 squats. When we have like combine training and stuff like that, if the task calls for it, then we do bench press and stuff like that, because they have to. But we don't use the bench press to get stronger. And I've taken running backs from 5 to 15 reps. I've taken, DBs where they couldn't push 225 to doing 5 to 10 of them, and which is combine training for 8 weeks or something like that. So we could get you stronger, because everything that we're doing recruits the whole body.
Yeah. Gary, thank you so much for joining me. I appreciate you taking the time to share all of that. I'll leave, your Instagram, the GOATA, and everything. I'm very glad that you guys are offering the level 1 free for people to, to educate themselves. I think that's awesome, and that's what we need. Thank you so much.
Yep, no problem, man. We appreciate the exposure, like I said, and maybe we'll do it again in the future.
Yeah, of course. Thank you.
Yep. All right. Sounds good.